Storytime about how I got an insane stalker from working at a strip club and professionally cuddling. Professionally cuddling is like platonic touch therapy. I'm essentially paid $100 an hour to listen to clients vent and non-sexually cuddle them. I met lots of different clients, both good and bad. You can always tell who's good or bad by their karma. A karma is like a review. One of my clients who was especially respectful was named George, and I will tell you why George is very sus later on. He was really chill and he would take me out to do anything I wanted to do, such as restaurants or mini golfing. Even if we weren't cuddling, he'd still pay me. Gotta get that bag. While I did spend a lot of my time with him, I did have other clients. One person after him that we'll call Tim left a review on my karma, saying that I was the best cuddler. The next day, I woke up to the site banning me for inappropriate behavior. There was fake inappropriate screenshots sent in, where someone was clearly using photos you could easily find on my Instagram. And the text literally said, "I'll even let you touch my butt." Like, who even talks like that? Then Tim sent me a screenshot of him getting a message from a random number. That's when I realized it may have had to do with his review. I quickly got my account back because I let the site know I was being harassed, but this is when things got worse. So not long after I got my banned account back, I received a message from a random number telling me to delete my account by 10 p.m. that night, or else they would tell my family that I was professionally cuddling. They sent my mom, dad, and stepmom's number in the text, so I knew they were serious. I was like, who are you and why are you doing this? And they claimed that they were an old friend from high school and that they were extremely concerned about me and that the old me wouldn't have done this. This didn't sound like anyone I knew, but I decided that I was just going to go ahead and tell my parents because I did not want anyone holding anything over me. So I let my parents know and they were extremely supportive. And when I didn't delete my account and they reached out, my mom clapped back at this person and said if they were actually my friend, they would support me and not conceal their identity. Fast forward a little bit, I started working at a strip club. I thought the stalker stuff was done. Not long after I liked the Facebook page of the strip club I was working at, I received a text from a random number asking if I worked at that strip club with a photo of me from that Facebook page. This is when I got an even bigger threat than before. After my stalker found out that I was working at a strip club, he sent me my next threat. Because he found out through Facebook, he got a hold of all my friends and family list. Guys, I honestly recommend keeping your Facebook friends private. And he was going to tell them all by 10 p.m. if I don't quit. I picked up the phone, started yelling at him, and all I heard was silence on the other end. So then a Facebook page named Kathy, who was like an old lady and obviously was a fake Facebook, sent this message to everyone with the photo of me working at the strip club, including my grandma. Like, are you trying to give my grandma a heart attack? So I had to explain to everyone that I was working there, but not as a stripper. This is when George reached back out to me, saying that he also got the same message from Kathy. But how would this mysterious Instagram know to message him? He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're working at a strip club with all those dirty old men. He offered to help and said I should quit. And that's when I put the pieces together that he was my stalker. I was able to compile the evidence together and get my old account back, which he'd banned again. And I haven't heard from him since. Storytime, my toxic best friend outed me to the entire school. So one day, one of my best friends from a neighboring school decided to move to my school, and she was extremely upset because her best friend over there came out as bi. So I ended up using this as an opportunity to come out bi as well. And she was like, well, it's okay for you. I just got really close to her. We'll call the girl Becky because no one likes a Becky, and we can call her friend Heather. So fast forward to after the situation had calmed down, we decided to all go prom dress shopping. So Heather and I were talking and we really hit it off. And I think Becky legitimately forgot about our sexuality because we were all talking about how much we have in common and we brought that up as well. She just looked at us and was like, oh, I forgot about that. And she just shrugged it off. But we continued to hang out for a few weeks. One of these weekends, we all went to church together, and the sermon was about how God accepts you no matter what your sexuality is. But of course, Becky turns around to us and says that Heather and I could never date because it would F everything up. Later that day, Heather actually ended up admitting that she had feelings for me, and this is when Becky lost it. So at the beach later that day, Heather and I decided to tell Becky how we felt. She freaked and wouldn't talk to us and locked herself in the bathroom. And we had to tell her that it's fine, we won't date, just so she would let herself out. I thought she was being entirely selfish, not wanting her best friends to be happy. And then she literally took my phone and went through all of our texts together. She woke up the next day all ready for Heather and I to be together and completely apologized. And then when we went to the mall that day, she walked away from us to go look at the hot guys, but then turned around and got pissed at us for falling behind. And this is why she said she didn't want us to date, yet we weren't even dating. She said she felt like she was gonna have to choose between Heather and I because of the whole situation, and I guess she just picked me. Becky became extremely codependent and didn't want to leave my side. She was pissed if I spent time with anyone else and basically forced Heather out of my life. I ended up running into Heather and inviting her to my 18th birthday, and this is when Becky had her massive breakdown. At my birthday, she outed me to everyone at the party, my mom, and Heather's mom as well. Storytime, my boyfriend tried to kill me so he could have my life insurance money. So I decided to go on Tinder to look for some potential matches, and lo and behold, a guy named Jared was there. He was adorable, he was charming, And we had multiple cell phone calls before deciding to meet. We met at Red Lobster and it was like fireworks. He was so romantic and looked like a 6-foot-something cowboy. He took me to a wildlife bird refuge after dinner and I instantly fell for him. We dated for months and everything was mostly good. However, he was just very pressuring for things. And I didn't want to take things too fast. I was 21 and he was 31. Eventually, this just gave me some bad vibes, so I decided to cut off the relationship. But a few months later, he called me saying that he couldn't forget me. He had been married before and his wife had passed away, so I felt very sympathetic towards him. He had a really nice job, making over $150K a year, and he said that all he wanted to do was take care of me and my child. So I moved in and things were good again. I would wake up in the morning, he would make me coffee, and I would help him with his kids. But I noticed that my weight was starting to go down. And that's when I realized he was putting something in my coffee. I was not feeling very well and my parents were extremely worried about me, especially once they found out I only weighed 88 pounds. I knew I had to have been really, really ill. So my parents drove down 5 hours to rescue me, and I was immediately hospitalized. That's when I was able to put together the full story on what was going on. He started putting all the money that he was making into my bank account, but he didn't let me have access to it. He would take out loans in my name, making it look like I was making money. And my life insurance policy added to $500,000. During this time in the hospital, I was going through severe withdrawals from whatever he was putting into my coffee. But the second I stopped drinking it, I started to gain weight back. I was thinking that maybe he had done this to his previous wife. However, when I looked her up, I found out that she was still alive. They were just divorced. Later, I was able to find out that they even moved back in with each other. Make sure you don't ever get too blinded by love to realize that you're being taken advantage of. Imagine TikTok being so powerful that they actually help you identify the person that almost murdered you. On my For You page the other day, I found this viral video that you guys might recognize, which states videos I took before almost being hunted and murdered. I clicked on her page, listened to her story, and was like, I have to know more. So I reached out and got the full thing. This is the case of Flowers Don't Growl. April 29th through April 30th of 2019, Taylor and her boyfriend Chris decided to take a trip to Falls Creek Falls, Tennessee. Taylor was 5 months pregnant at the time, so they figured they needed one last little trip before they were going to have a baby. And Taylor swore that Chris was going to propose. So that's why she documented so much of this trip, not even realizing that later on it was going to be used as evidence. So they set up at their assigned camping lot. They spent their time hiking, exploring, having fun. Taylor would collect flowers along the way to document it for memory's sake. But please keep these flowers in mind. And then on the second day, everyone from their assigned area was gone except for them. So they were more alone than before, or so they thought. So later in the night on their last day, they ended up hearing a loud crash. There's very windy roads nearby, so they figured that it was a wreck. And just to make sure kids weren't involved and that everyone was safe, they got out of their tent and ran over to the crash site, which was maybe half a mile away, to go check on the people. The sheriff ends up showing up and it's like a DUI situation, but everyone ultimately was okay. So before heading back to their campsite, Taylor says she has to go use the restroom. So her and Chris walk over to the bathroom so she can do her thing, and in the distance they see a light flickering. And as it gets closer, they notice that someone is running with a flashlight. So they're both cracking jokes to each other like, oh my gosh, this guy really has to go to the bathroom. But once he approaches the restroom, he ends up stopping right at them instead of actually going into the bathroom. And states, and I quote, "Wow, you guys are fast." Creepy. Taylor notices that he has a weird smile on his face and feels really nauseous but just associates it with the pregnancy. So just to be nice, they continue to have a conversation with him, but ultimately this is where things go wrong. So Chris and Taylor continue their weird interaction with this man, Chris explaining that they got to the wreck fast because they wanted to make sure everyone was okay, and the guy goes, yeah, I guess I'm just used to it. And Taylor's confused because, like, used to what? Hikes? Car wrecks? They ask what he does, and he says he travels a lot and likes to go camping. And Taylor, starting to get very uncomfortable now, tells Chris that, hey, they need to go back to the campsite because the police will be over there waiting for their statements. Just trying to make an excuse to leave, and Chris could tell it was BS. And as they start to take steps back, he starts to take steps towards them, asking questions like, hey, how long are you guys going to be here for? And his hand kept playing with his hoodie pocket. Chris was starting to pick up on the message as they continued to walk backwards, while the man followed them forward. And then this guy decides to tell them a little story. He was like, car accident. It got me thinking this morning as I was hiking and I passed these flowers. I stopped because they were so beautiful and I heard a deep growl and it scared me. And it makes me think, you never know what day is going to be your last. That's when they saw the knife. So this is when Taylor noticed the outline in his hoodie pocket was the shape of a knife. It completely clicked for her and she told her husband that they needed to run. He looked at her like, what's going on? And she just states, flowers don't growl. So they took off running, and this is when he took off chasing them. And I'll show a map of where exactly they were chased. This is where Taylor and Chris ended up, and this is where they last saw the guy chasing them. And they made it all the way back to the crash site, and luckily the police were still there. They told them what happened and made a report, and 2 of the cops went out looking for him but couldn't find him anywhere, while the other officer accompanied them back to the campsite so that they could pack up their stuff and leave. They tried to get updated on their case later on, but never ever got an update. Having the baby and it being a couple years later, Taylor sits down and ends up making a TikTok. It goes viral and a bunch of people start to DM her with potential suspects. Taylor stopped looking at her DMs because it got so emotional, but one user that messaged her lived in the Falls Creek Falls area and had followed a particular case. She opened the DM and saw the man. This is James L. Jordan.